History remembers the Mongol expansion as a cataclysm of unfathomable savagery. Yet the man who orchestrated it synthesized extreme military mobility with sophisticated administrative design to forge the largest contiguous land empire ever known. For centuries, historians assumed a desperate, prolonged drought starved the nomadic tribes and forced them outward to survive. The paleoclimatological truth is the exact opposite. This chart shows dendrochronological data, tree ring analyses from ancient Siberian pines in central Mongolia. Notice how the growth rings spike massively between 1211 and 1225. The data reveals 15 consecutive years of unusually warm temperatures and persistent rain. This massive biological surplus effectively provided the energetic fuel for the Mongol war machine. The abundance of grassland fodder supported a rapid, exponential multiplication of war horses and livestock. A fractured, nomadic people living on the high-elevation grasslands suddenly found themselves with the extreme thermodynamic energy required to explode outward and reshape global geography. The architect of this expansion was born Temujin. When he was 9 years old, rival Tatars fatally poisoned his father, and his own aristocratic clan abandoned his mother and his family on the harsh winter steppe to starve. Reduced to foraging for roots and surviving a period of brutal enslavement, he learned a harsh reality early on. Survival depended entirely on personal capability and unwavering loyalty, rendering traditional aristocratic bloodlines completely worthless. As he grew and began unifying the steppe, Temujin broke the established rules of nomadic warfare. Instead of ransoming defeated nobles, he executed them. He then deliberately absorbed the surviving commoners into his own ranks, erasing their old tribal identities to prevent future rebellions. By 1206, he achieved total hegemony. A great political and military assembly, known as a Kurultai, formally proclaimed him Genghis Khan. Here, he implemented a revolutionary state apparatus designed to permanently prevent the empire from fracturing back into tribal warfare. He weaponized the deep trauma of his childhood to violently dismantle a cyclical, unstable tribal system, replacing it with history's first hyper-meritocracy. This diagram illustrates how Genghis Khan completely reorganized his population. He implemented a strict decimal system, structuring the society into military units of tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. By deliberately mixing men from disparate tribes at the lowest levels, he eradicated old loyalties. Notice how these units merge into a massive circle. This illustrates the Nurj, the traditional Mongol winter hunt. Warriors formed an unbroken cordon stretching for miles, slowly constricting to drive wildlife into a central killing zone, an exercise demanding absolute operational discipline. Translated to human warfare, the Nurj became a devastating strategy. The Mongols utilized their extreme mobility to rapidly encircle opposing armies, executing double envelopments and feigned retreats that broke enemy formations and drew them into deadly traps. The inherently light cavalry force initially struggled against heavy fortifications. To solve this, Genghis Khan actively assimilated captured Chinese and Middle Eastern engineers, rapidly mastering counterweight trebuchets, mechanical artillery, and explosive gunpowder. The Mongol army operated as a highly adaptable, combined-arms military machine, capable of outmaneuvering massive infantry formations and out-engineering the greatest sedentary empires. In 1218, the governor of a border city in the neighboring Khwarazmian Empire detained and executed a Mongol trade caravan. When Genghis Khan dispatched ambassadors to demand justice, the Shah arrogantly murdered the chief envoy. In response, Genghis Khan mobilized his forces and executed an impossible flanking maneuver. He led his main strike force across 300 miles of the harsh Kizilkum Desert, completely bypassing heavily fortified borders to emerge entirely unspotted at the gates of Bukhara. The ensuing campaign inflicted a demographic catastrophe upon the region. The Mongols systematically erased grand, cosmopolitan cities like Merv and Samarkand, destroying ancient irrigation systems and massacring the populations. The Mongols themselves actively encouraged and spread inflated casualty numbers. Exaggerated reports of slaughter served as a calculated psychological weapon designed to terrify neighboring regions into immediate capitulation without the need for a protracted siege. The destruction was absolute and apocalyptic. utilized as a deliberate, pragmatic mechanism to violently shatter the medieval geopolitical status quo and ensure total submission. Expanding across a massive, diverse geography presented a new challenge. Genghis Khan acutely realized early in his reign that an empire can be conquered on horseback, but it cannot be ruled on horseback. When conservative generals proposed exterminating the massive Han Chinese peasant population to transform northern China into pristine grazing land, a captured Khitan scholar named Yelu Chusai intervened. He convinced the Mongols to implement systematic bureaucracy and tax the productive, living population instead, saving millions of lives and generating immense, sustainable wealth. Genghis Khan established the Yasa, an evolving legal framework of imperial decrees and customary law designed to maintain military discipline and ensure social harmony. He paired this with a strategic policy of religious tolerance, granting freedom of worship and offering tax exemptions to clerics of all faiths in exchange for the social compliance of their congregations. This map reveals the Yam, an immense, highly guarded continental horse relay postal system. It allowed rapid communication and made travel remarkably safe and efficient for merchants and diplomats from the Mediterranean to the Pacific. By integrating foreign intellectual elites and securing the vast trade routes, the Mongol administration converted a disparate collection of traumatized, conquered lands into a highly cohesive, functioning Eurasian economic system. In 1226, despite his advancing age, Genghis Khan launched a ruthlessly punitive expedition against the rebellious Western Xia state. He died during the campaign a year later. Following strict orders, his funeral escort slaughtered anyone they encountered en route to his burial site to prevent grave desecration. The exact location of his final resting place remains one of history's most enduring archaeological mysteries. Scholars heavily theorize the tomb is hidden near Burkhan Khaldun, a sacred mountain in a highly restricted zone of Mongolia. The sheer scale of his territorial conquests birthed the Pax Mongolica, a period of transcontinental peace that unified the Silk Road. By eliminating border disputes, this stability catalyzed a massive exchange of technologies, sending Chinese innovations like explosive gunpowder, papermaking, and the magnetic compass flowing westward. Starting as a destitute tribal exile, Genghis Khan dismantled a fractured nomadic system to forge a meritocratic military state. His conquests violently dragged the East and the West into permanent contact, seeding the technological, economic, and cultural exchanges that dismantled the medieval order and laid the direct foundation for the modern globalized world.